It is the sweetest name I know.
My name is Jaden Bower. I'm the current vice president of Antioch Baptist Church Youth Ministry. This week on Something About Jesus, with special guest Elder Thomasina, we'll be discussing school. So, hello, Miss Thomasina. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jaden. How are you? I'm happy to be here with you today to talk about reopening school and what we think about school during this pandemic.
As everybody should know, Miss Thomasina is a What are you, Miss Thomasina?
High school librarian.
There you go. Yeah. So do you like being a librarian?
I love being a librarian. I love reading. I love learning new things. And so books have that ability to take you away from where you are into new experiences. So I love being a librarian.
So since you like to read, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book. My favorite book besides the Bible is a book called Standing at the Scratch Line, written by Maya Angelou's son. I forget his first name, but his last name is Johnson. I really like that book. It's kind of coming of age, but it's also talking about defending yourself in life. And so I really like that book, yes. What's your
My
favorite book?
my favorite book is don't laugh at me, but it's Bambi.
Bambi?
Oh yeah,
Why? Why?
cause so we had to read a book for English class, and we had to like talk about the coming of age of Bambi. So like it was talking about how Bambi was a little kid, and then how he had grown up and had to survive on his own.
Pretty much like real life, huh?
Yeah,
And the
yeah, that's
people
what kind
around
of.
you that influence you, your environment. That's really
Mhm.
good. Hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Um. So, would you ever want someone to become a teacher or a librarian?
No, not now. You said would I want someone to?
Yeah.
School is a very important infrastructure of our community. It plays a very important role. But school and the learning part of it, the educational part of it, has changed so much in the last, even just the last decade. It's so much geared toward teaching, toward tests, because tests create high test scores, create more funding, and it's all about funding. Everything kind of always points back to money and dollar and getting things funded. Documentation on paper says that the priority is educating the students. However, you're teaching tests. You're not even introducing some of the information that's on the test that you're requiring students to take. Um, and not for nothing, everybody's not a good test taker. A test or even a culmination of tests should not be the only tool that you use to assess what someone knows, their knowledge or their base, or it shouldn't be like that. And teachers now have so much more paperwork to do that they can't even teach their disciplines. And then discipline, that's a whole nother thing. Dealing with behaviors in the classroom and different things like that takes a lot of time out of your learning time. And I just wouldn't, because you don't have the freedom to be who you are, to be creative. Departmentally, especially in the higher grades, English, math, or whatever, the teachers pretty much have to stay on a schedule. And
Mhm.
as we know, everybody doesn't learn the same. So if you're in high school AP, for just say science, I can't stay on the same curve when I have multiple students in my class who have learning disabilities. We can't stay on the same, we can't finish the same amount of work. They do not work the same. So I don't like it. I mean, I know it's necessary. Yeah, no, I'm happy I'm almost done, because it's
Mm.
become a different kind of institution.
So, like, what made you want to become a librarian or a teacher?
The love of learning, the aha moment, the love of reading, and the possibility or probability of introducing the love of learning to students. Reading, we talk about it, people say it, it's a cliche. Reading is fundamental. It is the thing that, is the basis or foundation for a lot of our learning, as probably you even have realized over the years. Things that were necessary for reading, like phonics, teaching phonics, is no longer taught. I think we're kind of moving back toward it now because we realized that it really did have a place and it was important. But if you don't know that every letter has a sound and every sound, put together makes a word, a lot of people struggle and they don't like reading. And I hear people all the time in the high school say, I hate reading. I hate reading. You don't hate reading because you read every text message, every news flash on Facebook. You don't hate reading. You hate reading in school, or you hate reading certain information. You don't hate reading. So, you have to try to introduce to students literature that they're interested in, or different ways of producing a literature. And then one of the things that I did a few years ago was, what are you reading lately? And this is when text messaging first came out, and how you're scrolling through. And I don't even want to get started on the difference between text language and school language, because I've seen, it was a hard transition once you started to text and you were able to leave out vowels and shorten words and use different kinds of things. Then when you had to write a paper in English, you were trying to use that same language. That didn't translate well. And so, it don't work like that. And so, it's just, I love it for that. Just, English, being able to communicate. Reading is communicating as well. And it's the author communicating their experience, their thought, and how maybe that affects you or plays into your life. Like you said, Bambi, and you can identify with Bambi as a young African-American man in America coming of age. Now you're getting ready, you're our high school senior. You have to make some serious choices, not difficult, but serious choices that will begin to affect the rest of your life. And so, I love that part of learning. I love that part of growing and what literature can do for you.
Okay, so we have a question. We actually have two questions.
Okay.
We have one from Emmanuel, and it says, what best advice would you give to someone who is worried about the uncertainties of the upcoming school year?
If you don't know God, find God so that you can trust in Him. This pandemic is so unsure. It's constantly evolving. One of the main things that we have to do is learn how to adapt to what's happening. Every week, something different comes up. Every week, a new facet is explored or learned or whatever. My advice would be, what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel safe, you should be able to exercise that. As far as being in-person learning or remote learning, one of the things that as we near the time when most schools would open in person, the question is, young people or youth, children seem to not be as affected as adults with their symptoms or whatever, so it shouldn't be a problem with them going to school. One of the small little factors that I'm sure they're addressing but you don't really hear about is those young people come home to adults. And so we've heard about being asymptomatic, so the children can be positive and have no symptoms, but bring that home to older adults like myself, grandparents and parents, and we can and in turn be infected and die. So the question remains, the question is not even remains, how much is a life worth? And so don't put your life in jeopardy. I have some concerns. My school district now is talking about opening in 3 weeks to see how it goes. How many people have to be infected and die before you figure out what you were trying to do is not going to work. One life is too many. If you could help it, if you could save it. So I say, to Emmanuel, if you're doing in-person learning, if your institution is offering that, if you don't feel safe, because everyone has to wear a face mask when they're inside. Everyone is supposed to practice social distancing. As young people being in school, that's almost impossible. Impossible. Right. And if it were possible, it's not like young people want to do it anyway. All of your life, school has been social. Now all of a sudden that component is being taken away. That's a very hard adjustment. So I hope I answered your question. Whatever makes you feel safe, what makes you feel like that you're protecting yourself and the well-being of not just you, but the rest of your family members or the other people that you're connected with. And don't be afraid to, voice your concerns or your opinions. Most of these school districts should be considering and communicating with families to see exactly how they feel and what their voices are concerning reopening the schools, because a lot of it is about funding. I understand the importance of school. I understand the educational value. I understand the food program. I understand physical activity. I understand students who come from a lower socioeconomic environment who most likely have learning disabilities, who need special services. I understand the role that school plays, but I also understand that that could create an environment that would just, offer up deadly consequences.
Yeah, it's like people, they want to, be together, but they can't,
Right. And for all your life, you're used to being able to be together. You're used to being able to have physical contact. One of my questions for you is, how does that make you feel? You're a senior in high school. You are talented and gifted in a contact sport, which is now missing. So competition-wise, you won't be able to, I don't want to say exploit yourself, but, put yourself out there for possible scholarships to advance your education. How does that make you feel?
It's a bad situation,
Was that some possible dollars you were counting on?
Yeah, I would love to wrestle in college, it'd be amazing, because that's where all the top of the line wrestlers are. But is it safe to do it? No. Do I want to do it? I would love to do it, but I just can't right now. So,
right, you can't. And so scouts can't even, if you don't have tape up to now, scouts can't even come to you and offer you scholarships and things because they can't see you compete in your discipline.
Yeah, and I know my brother-in-law's brother. I don't know what that's supposed to do. But but yeah, he actually just went off to school to play football, and he has to self-quarantine for 14 days out of college. And I'm like, dude, I wouldn't even have gone.
Exactly.
You gotta take a plane. That's a long time, man.
2 weeks.
That's disgusting. Yeah. I don't like it. I don't think it was a good idea. Okay. Do you have any more questions?
No, you had two.
Oh yeah, well you answered the second one. It was do you either feel comfortable going to school this fall? But go ahead. Sorry.
In my school, I'm pretty secluded. I can be secluded. Of course, we can't distribute books right now. So my section of the school, the library, will probably more than likely be closed. However, in the back portion of my library is where our tech department is. And, students, most students now are given their own personal Chromebooks. Well, that's where that is where there's distributed and everything back there. So there will be a lot of traffic coming through the library. I'm probably, if I have to go to school in a couple of weeks, I will probably barricade myself in my office for the mandatory hours I need to be there and then leave, because I'm not going to put myself at risk and I'm not going to put other people at risk as well. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I personally feel the same way. I don't feel comfortable going back to school because it's disgusting and who
And
wants to be
one of the
around
other
people?
components that have been being discussed lately in the news is ventilation. And so there's proven facts that that's why there's no more dining in, because it's been proven that the ventilation, the air conditioning, is what spreads the virus among diners in restaurants. So what do you think is going to happen with 1,200 people in a building with that air conditioner on? With that, if God, thank God if you have an air conditioner. But a lot of schools don't even have that. That's just going to even be worse. We know
Yeah,
how germs and bacteria grow in dark, moist places where it's going to be hot and just, yeah, it's just a recipe for disaster. I know people are anxious, and I know parents, after having to spend 4 months at home with your children, are anxious to get them out of your house. They are your children.
yeah,
And an older lady once told me, when my children were younger, their education is ultimately your responsibility as the parent. I know we get put a lot of weight and responsibility on teachers and educators, and I don't want people to lose their jobs because schools are closed, because not only do our students educated, we have teachers and staff, we have before and after school, we have so many components that the school aids in a person's life. You spend a lot of hours at school, and that's one of the safe environments. That has been one of my prayer concerns actually during this time, is children who are in abusive environments, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's verbal. You have now been stationary, or you had to stay now in that environment. I would love for schools to open, because most child abuse is reported in school. But if we're not in school, that's still going to go unchecked, and I really feel bad for those students.
yeah. Thank you, Miss Thomasina. We
You're
are out of
welcome.
time.
Okay.
Um.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime, anytime. We will see you guys on the next one.